Hello everyone, this is Mridul Pandey and in this video we are going to cover the topic of inflation. We will be covering this topic from examination point of view, and trust me, it will be more than enough for any examination from SSC to UPSC. You do not need to know anything more than this. The subtopics we will be covering under inflation are introduction, the types of inflation, WPI and CPI, the process of measuring inflation and inflation targeting, effects of inflation, how to control inflation, the concepts related to inflation, and Philip curve. So now let's start with the introduction of inflation. What do you understand by inflation? That is mahangai in Hindi, obviously. What is inflation? Right? So the persistent increase in the price level of a basket of commodities. When I'm saying basket of commodities, let's say I have a list of 10 to 20 necessary items, like something of our ration that is of daily use, the slipper or all the things that we need to purchase once a year, clothes and all these things. We just make a basket of commodities and we will check the price of that basket of commodities, and when there will be the persistent increase in the price level of the basket of commodity, we'll term it as inflation. Or maybe you can say that too much money changing very fewer goods is called inflation. Now, what are the types on the basis of the growth rate? Growth rate, when I'm saying how fastly inflation is growing. What is the speed of the growth or the rate of the growth of inflation? That is creeping, galloping and hyperflation. We have three types: creeping, galloping and hyperflation. Creeping is 2 to 3%, galloping is above 10% and can go up to 3 digit, that is up to 50%. But hyperflation, it is very dangerous. It is like the astronomical rise. When we say astronomical rise, millions, billions, trillions are the words when we are calculating something of astronomical things, right? So that's why I use this term of astronomical rise, that is more than 50% in a month, is called hyperflation. Now, on the basis of the causes, why inflation is caused? On the basis of this cause, we have 5 types of inflation: cartelization, hoarding, demand pull inflation, and cost pull inflation and structural inflation. Now let's understand what is cartelization. When let's say there's a group of 5 producers of a particular item, and they are only the producer of that particular item, like kind of monopoly. They are having a kind of monopoly. So what they did, they formed a group, they decided to increase the price of the item. That is called cartelization. For example, the oil producing countries, they formed a group, they decided to increase the price of oil in the international market, and we can see the result here. The price of petrol is above 100 in India now. So this is the example of cartelization. But if we will talk about the Indian market, in Indian market, guys, cartelization is illegal. You cannot form a cartel. We have the act of MRTP, Monopolies Restrictive Trade Policy, that is MRTP. Okay, we have CCA, that is Competition Compensation Act of 2002, that prohibits formation of cartel. Now when we talk about hoarding, it's simple. Suppose there is some item and its price is volatile throughout the year, like at some point its price is low, at some point its price is high. For example, onion. So what I will do, I will store too much of quantity of that particular item in order to increase the demand, and when the demand will increase, the price will inflate, and that is called the inflation of price because of hoarding. But we have Essential Commodity Act to control this hoarding system. Now we also have demand pull inflation. What is demand pull inflation? It's clear. When demand is pulling the rate of growth of inflation, it is called demand pull inflation. How it happens? Suppose when we have too much of money, we will spend that money, and when we will spend the money, the demand of that particular item in the market will increase. That is called demand pull inflation. So definitely the demand will increase when there will be more of the cash liquidity in the market, when too much of cash is infused in the market. So what are the regions of demand pull inflation? That is too much of money in the market. And from where the money comes? When government increases its expenditure, then there will be demand pull inflation. When there will be increase in money supply, and when there will be a black money is the source of money in the market, definitely, or parallel economy. People will not prefer to save it into bank accounts, right? So all these things are the factors of demand pull inflation, and the effects of demand pull inflation: shortage in supply, increased price of goods, and increase in cost of living. Definitely all these things will happen. Now cost pull inflation, it's simple. When the cost is pulling the inflation, now cost of what? Cost of production. Suppose I have a factory, I'm a manufacturer. The cost of raw material I'm purchasing from the market to produce the particular thing. Suppose I'm producing this pen. So the cost of raw materials I need to produce this pen increased. Suppose the government taxes in the manufacturing of this produce in this item increased, and the payment, the wages I have to pay to my workers also increased. So all these things are basically leading to the increase in the cost of production of this pen. So definitely the selling price of this pen will inflate from maybe rupees 10 to rupees 20 or rupees 15. Okay, because my cost increased. No, this is called cost pull inflation, and trust me, this is bad among all types of inflation, because the national income is reduced. My income will definitely reduce. So this is called cost pull inflation. And supply shock is a situation when, because of an external or internal event, there will be a scarcity of supply. Okay, now let's talk about a structural inflation. It's as simple as that. We do not have enough infrastructure to manufacture something, let's say product X, so its price will rise if we do not have proper infrastructure. Because of my cost of production will be high because I lack proper infrastructure. So this is the structural infrastructure. Okay, now how to measure inflation? WPI, CPI and IIP. It's as simple as that. WPI, CPI and IIP, and the name will explain everything. What is WPI? Wholesale price index. What is CPI? Consumer price index. And IIP, index of industrial production. Okay, now let's talk about all these things. What is WPI? Wholesale price index. That means we are taking the price of three categories of goods, three groups of goods, that is primary article, fuel and power article, and manufactured products. We have these three categories: primary article, fuel and power, and manufactured products. We'll look at the products price in this item, in this WPI system. It is measured on weekly basis and published once in a month. And the base year for this is now 2011 and 12. Initially it was 2004 and 5. It is changed to 11 and 12 because many of the new things are added in the sector. In many sectors like IT industry, we have added many of the items, right, that was not present during 2004 and 5. So it is necessary to revise the base year. Now numbers of items we also have increased from 697 to 670, from 676 to 697, sorry. And the services are not included. This is the major problem in WPI. We are measuring only products, no, so we do not have services included in this WPI. Okay, but if you talk about CPI, consumer price index, it is very good system. Why it is a good system? Because the need of an agricultural labor is different from an industrial worker, and different from a rural labor, and different from UNME. What is UNME? That you need to find out. Write in the comment box. I will definitely tell you what is UNME, but you need to find it out by yourself and write it in the comment section. Okay, now what happens? The need of industrial worker, we will take the basket of all the commodities that are of need of industrial worker. We similarly will take all the commodities that are useful for agricultural labor, or the basic needs, and then we will measure the price. Who will measure the price? Labor Bureau will measure the price for all these things. But for UNME, now I'm telling you, UNME is urban non-manual employee. Urban non-manual employee. It is measured by CSO, and CSO name is not changed to NSO. What is NSO? Just Google it. I'm telling you to Google it because when you will Google it, you will remember this. This is important for prelims point of view. I can tell you it is like only three words, right? But please Google it. Only the name. Okay. Now, what happened now? We have CPI, Consumer Price Index, combined. That is for urban labor and for rural labor added. Okay. We have this combined urban and rural labor system. It is the present system. Now IIP, Index of Industrial Production, we simply take various sectors here and we will measure the growth rates like mining, manufacturing, electricity, and in the second group we have use-based sectors, that is basic goods, capital goods, and intermediate goods. Okay, these are the three methods to measure inflation. Now what is inflation targeting? RBI and Government of India decided that what percentage of inflation is necessary for the economy. See, inflation is something that is important and that is very dangerous for us also, for the economy. So what percent is the required percentage of inflation? So we decided that 4% is the inflation percentage that we need for our economy, and it is the duty of Reserve Bank of India to control inflation rate at 4%. 2% up or 2% down is fine, because it is not possible to control it exactly at 4%. So even it will go below by 2%, that is 2%, or if it will go above by 2%, that is 6%. From inflation 2% to 6% is fine, but if it will go below 2% or go above 6% for successive 3 quarters, right, RBI has to give explanation to Government of India about the causes and action plan, and then every 6 months RBI has to bring a report stating present level and future movement of inflation. Okay. Now, what are the effects of inflation? Just think about it. What are the effects of inflation? It will definitely reduce the purchasing power. I can buy 10 kg of rice for ₹100 if today I'll be able to buy only 5 kg of rice maybe tomorrow because of inflation. This is called a reducing of purchasing power. Then the reduce of real rate of return. What is the real rate of return? Suppose I have ₹100 in my pocket and I invested ₹100 in fixed deposit at the interest of ₹6% per year, but inflation increased above 8%, maybe 8%, let's say. So after a year, what I'll be getting in return is 6%, but the value of my money will reduce by 8%. That means I am still going through loss of 2%. That is called reduced real rate of return in case of inflation. And when I'll face this kind of loss or this kind of scenario will be there, the investment scenario will also change. So it will affect the investment scenario. I will not invest in fixed deposit. I will invest my money in share market or maybe in gold market. There I can get better returns. Okay. Now it has an effect on exports as well. Why? How? Because I am producing some items and I am exporting it to a foreign country. But if the prices are increasing here, the cost of production will increase and the price of final product will increase, that is the selling price. And in international market, I have to compete with other products as well, but the prices of my product will be high, so it will have an effect on exports also. Now, effect on borrowers and lenders. In case of inflation, borrower is always in profit in case of inflation, and lender will always be in loss. It is a potential prelims question, so just think about it once. Why borrower will always be in profit and lender will always be in loss? It is same as that of the case of fixed deposit. Who is borrower? Let's say bank is the borrower. Bank is returning you money with some percentage. So bank will always be in profit. You will be in loss. You are lender. This is not the correct example I gave you, but just to compare, understand things, I gave you this example. Okay. Now, how to control inflation? We got the reason of inflation. What is the reason of inflation? Too much of the money in the market. Too much of the demand in the market. So now we have to reduce the money in the market. We have to reduce the demand in the market. That means we are reversing the cause of inflation. How we will do that? By credit control. We'll control the credit. How we will be doing credit control? By increasing tax. See here the third point, that is increasing tax. By increasing saving. How? By lucrative returns on saving schemes. Maybe I will increase the return rate up to 7%, up to 8% on fixed deposits. Initially it was around 7% 2 or 5 or 4 years back, right? So it was to control inflation. The government should reduce the unnecessary expenditure. Now public debt means government's borrowing. How governments borrow money? It will borrow money from private banks, so that when it will borrow money from private banks, they will have less money to provide loans to common people. So this is the tool government use. How the government borrows money? It issues bonds or securities to banks. What are bonds and securities? Let me tell you this. We will have to cover the topic of bonds and securities in money topic also, money and banking. But I'm telling you for like layman's understanding here, in layman's term, what are securities? Suppose I'm bank, I'm giving you the security of rupees 2 lakh in rupees 90,000 only, and with a time period of 1 year. After 1 year, you will return me the security and I will pay you rupees 2 lakh. Simple. So you purchase the security for rupees 90,000, time period is 1 year or 2 year. After that time period, you will return the security to me. That means you will sell me back the security and get the 2 lakh amount from me. These are the concepts of securities or bonds. Okay, and rational wage policy is also important. Wages policy should be there to control inflation. Now, what are the other concepts related to inflation? Yeah, deflation. Deflation is exactly opposite of inflation. Negative growth in the inflation rate, that is prices are declining. What is disinflation? See, disinflation is not negative to inflation. It is about inflation, but the change of inflation is not uniform. Sometimes it was high, like here we'll take the example of 5 years. In first year, the inflation is from 100 to 110, that is 10 rupees increased. Price of the commodity increased by rupees 10. Then it increased by rupees 7, that is 170. Then increased by rupees 3, 120. Then increased by rupees 1. That means inflationary trend is there, but inflation is not uniform and it is getting slower over the period of time. That is called disinflation. Now, what is core inflation? See, we talked about the basket of some commodities. So let's say I have the basket of 10 items, in which food items are also included for industrial worker, let's say. But what happened? The price of all the items are good, they are not increasing, but the price of one item, that is pulses, is increasing abruptly, and the other item, onion, is increasing abruptly. And because of these two items, the overall price also increased. And while seeing the number, I can see that there is inflation, but actually there is no inflation, only the price of two items are increased. So these two are the volatile items. What we will do? We'll ignore these two items and we'll just measure the core inflation. What is the core inflation? Not these two items only. We'll ignore them. Okay. Now headline inflation, we'll not ignore them. That is headline inflation. We'll measure the total inflation of the economy. All 697 commodities will be considered here. Now, what is a stagflation? It is an exception. Generally, what happens if there is inflation, there will be high employment. Don't read whatever is written there. Listen to me. When there is high inflation, there will be more jobs, but there is exception, and that exception is stagflation. There will be high inflation but high unemployment. For example, the period of Corona, growth will be low. Base effect of base period on inflation, like initially we had 2004 and 5. So if you will measure the inflation will be different. If you will measure we will take the base effect like 2011 and 12, inflation will be different. So this is the effect of base period on inflation. Now inflationary gap, it's the demand is higher than the supply, that is production. Deflationary gap, supply is higher than the demand, that results in unemployment. Obviously, when supply is high, demand is low, so unemployment will be there. Biflation, bi means two, inflation and deflation coexist, and built-in inflation, because of any past event. If inflation is rising in this year, let's take an example. This year price of petrol is very high, so transportation cost will be higher, but all these costs are adding in the production cost that I will be selling next year, of the item that I will be selling next year, okay, as a manufacturer. So the product, when I launch it into the market next year, its price will be high. So you as a common public will face the inflation next year because of the event that is happening this year, that is the increase in price, that is called built-in inflation. And what is inflation tax? The depreciation in the value of money. We talked about it, right? Suppose I have rupees 100 and inflation was 6%, the value decreased by rupees 6. So this is called inflation tax. Now what is Philip curve? It's simple. Philip curve is very simple. Higher the inflation, lower will be unemployment. Let's see in this graph. I2, that is higher inflation, I1, that is low inflation. The vertical y-axis is for inflation percentage. So I2 is higher inflation, I1 is lower inflation. Now we can see the line I2, the B point B. The unemployment rate is less here. Unemployment rate is low when inflation is high, and unemployment rate is high when inflation is I1, that is I1 is smaller than I2. That means there will be low inflation, then there will be higher unemployment, and if there will be higher inflation, there will be low unemployment. So guys, all this for the topic of inflation. If you are facing any issue in any of the topic, just write it in the comment box, and you can share this video with your friends as well, so that they can also get benefit out of it. And if you feel that this video benefited you, do like, subscribe the channel, press the bell icon to get the notification, and write in the comment box appreciate me or write something to improve the way you want to get the things here. Okay, that's all for this topic. Thank you.